What is up, Coach Emma here, and welcome back to the Fit Habit Life podcast, where we cut through the noise, talk real health and fitness, sustainable fat loss, and habits that actually work. And on today's episode, I'm going to be talking about how to lose 10 pounds of body fat in 10 weeks. But before we dig in, just wanted to thank you for listening. If you've been enjoying the show, if you could share the show, rate the show, subscribe to the podcast. That just helps me get in front of more people, which helps me help more people, which is the goal of this show, because there's a lot of crap out there. And I feel like it's partly my purpose to help people not fall for it. Because I've fallen for it. So that's kind of the point of this episode today. There's a bunch of crap out there about losing body fat, what actually works. And so I'm going to talk about realistically, like how to actually lose 10 pounds of actual body fat in 10 weeks, because it needs to be set. And like what actually is realistic, what you need to do to get to a point to where you can actually do that. So yeah. And in case you're wondering, yes, my house is still moldy, which is why I'm recording in the kitchen. But they're coming today to test the moldy bathroom that they didn't clean properly. And they came back yesterday, cleaned it properly, and now we're getting somebody to test it to make sure that they actually cleaned it properly, because the other bathroom's moldy. So we need a bathroom that's not moldy so we can still live here while they're finishing the other crap. Anyway, that's why background. Honestly, it's probably going to be like this for a really long time, actually, because our office's flooring was taken out and drywall was removed for the mold. So it is what it is. I don't mind recording in the kitchen. It's a blank wall. It's nice. It works, Anyway. But just thought, in case you guys were wondering, updates on mold. There you go. There you have it. But yes, how to lose 10 pounds of body fat in 10 weeks. And honestly, the 10 weeks themselves, pretty boring. But I'm going to talk about what I would do specifically and what I would recommend a client do to get in and get out. Because fat loss is not fun. Like, it's really boring. You're hungry, which sucks. I love to eat food. I hate being hungry. And it's like, do you want to spend longer? No, I don't. I want to get in and get out and get back to maintenance and focus on building muscle and performance and fueling my training. So this is how I do it. But first, like I said, it comes with what you do before you go into the fat loss phase. And so if you've never focused on building muscle, getting strong, improving your metabolism, that's step one. And you should do that for at least 3 months, like really focusing on getting strong, building muscle. Yeah, the scale's going to go up, but you're going to improve your metabolism, which is going to set you up for a very, very successful fat loss phase. And most clients that come to me, chronic dieting. So if you've been chronically dieting, you're not ready for a fat loss phase. You need to build muscle and go into a surplus and improve your metabolism. Because your body's not in a place to where it would respond well. And so that's really to set you up for success. Is you need to get your body to a place where it feels safe, it is strong, it's fueled properly, and give your central nervous system a break. Give your body time to recover and recoup from all the dieting that you've done in the past, which most of my clients have. And then once you do that, then your body's ready. And I actually have notes today, guys. You're going to be very excited. My thoughts are not just, they're thoughts, but I have an outline for the thoughts. So, and again, biggest point is your body needs to be in a good state to respond. And so focusing on building muscle and doing that first is going to set you up for that. And how you're in a good place to respond. Sleep quality is awesome. Digestion's good. Consistent energy levels. Your performance is improving week over week. You're getting stronger. Your clothes might be a little bit tighter, but they're tighter in good places, right? Like your glutes, your arms, your shoulders, your back. So getting stronger, clearly build muscle. Overall energy and sleep are probably the two biggest indicators. Recovery, you shouldn't be starving. You should be pretty satiated, pretty full, pretty content with food quality. You should feel not super stressed. Like, you should feel like in a good place mentally. And that's huge too. If you're very stressed, like going into a fat loss phase, not a great idea depending on your state. And I guess for context too, like I'm talking about in this conversation, like more trained people like myself, or like a client who is consistent, who is trained consistently, who isn't like super overweight, isn't super underweight. Because if you're super overweight, then yeah, I mean, you probably have more than 10 pounds to lose. And honestly, like you'll probably be in a fat loss phase for a lot longer. It could be a year of fat loss if you have 50 plus pounds to lose. Depends on how your body's responding and how you're feeling. So that's other context there, right? So I'm talking about more so like someone who is maybe like not where they'd like to be physically, but they're not like to an extreme on either end. Because if you're like underweight, this does not apply to you at all. You should probably be in a surplus for a while to build muscle, get to a healthier body fat percentage, and improve your overall like health, because your probably blood markers aren't great, probably have some thyroid issues, probably have some like cycle issues if you're female, probably don't have a cycle. And then same with the opposite end. Like if you're pretty overweight, then you don't really need to go into a surplus, because if you're not very active now, as you start to train and improve your diet quality, you're going to probably build some muscle and you'll probably lose some body fat along the way. And so focusing on just getting healthy, which is probably going to be losing body fat and reducing your overall weight, is going to get you to that place. So I'm kind of like talking about like the in the middle people. So anyway, for context, but once you've been in a surplus, your body is ready, and that's subjective, right? But that's why having a coach is helpful. Then you need to clearly define the goal, start and end date, period, end of story. And so to do that, mapping out like what holidays are coming up, what events do you have? Are you okay with being in a fat loss phase and not partaking in those events? Or maybe limiting some of those things so you can get in and get out. Because, I mean, in a diet, you can have diet breaks where there are days that you're intentionally eating at maintenance to give your mental mindset a break and to give your body a little bit of a break too, physiologically. And those are okay. But if you want to get in and get out, minimizing those is going to be really helpful. So setting a clear start and end date and mapping that out and seeing if that's feasible. And I said 10 pounds of body fat in 10 weeks. So 10 pounds of body fat is going to be more than 10 pounds on the scale. And the reason for that is when you start cutting calories, you're eating less food, you're eating less carbs, body is holding on to less water, less food in the digestive tract. So it's probably going to be closer to about 12 to 15-ish pounds over 10 weeks. And it's probably 8 to 10 of those are going to be body fat, maybe 7 to 10, depending on how big of a person you are, how much glycogen or carbs you're eating, and how much water your body's retaining. So it's probably closer to 12 to 15 pounds in 10 weeks. And again, the scale's going to spike, or it's going to drop pretty quickly that first couple weeks, and then it's going to kind of slow down. But anyway, the goal of this is to lose body fat, maintain as much muscle as possible, keep training performance high, keep your digestion functioning well, keep energy levels as stable as they can be, get in and get out, and avoid like rebounding after. So setting that start and end date is going to help mentally, because if you have an end date in mind, then it's like, cool, I'm ready to go. Partly because like mentally it's easier. You could check off the days off the list, but also you don't want to live in this phase. Like that's too physiologically stressful for the body, and that can cause your body's metabolism to adapt and downregulate, which we don't want. So that's why start and end date is super important. And then you should know your maintenance calories before you jump into a fat loss phase. And that's why doing a reverse diet, which helps you find your top end of maintenance, and going into a slight surplus to build muscle is going to help you do that. So if you've never done that, if you've never tracked consistently, if you don't even know where you maintain your weight, that's step one before you even have the right to go into a fat loss phase. That is step one. So you need to know your maintenance, because otherwise you don't know what a deficit's going to look like for you. And depending on the phase of life, right, maintenance is going to change, deficit's going to change, but in order to lose body fat, you have to be eating less than your body burns at maintenance. And so in order to know what that number is, you probably have to know what your maintenance calories are, logically, right? So we need that data. We don't need a random calorie calculator to tell us. Those are wildly inaccurate, and depending on activity levels and stuff. I have women that I've coached that are like 40. Yeah, she was 40 pounds lighter than me and eating like 400 more calories than me a day and maintaining her weight. So what calorie calculators give you, not accurate. Like, and it's really dependent upon the person, how their body responds, what their body, so you need to track your own calories and figure out your own maintenance yourself. And a coach can help you do that. Or you can just monitor the weight trends. And if you're tracking your calories, weight is fluctuating a little bit, but trend line is pretty even, then it's like, cool, you're probably at maintenance. And doing a reverse diet helps you find that top end of maintenance, how much you can do to, how much you can actually eat to maintain that weight. And then from there, you can also find that bottom end. But usually wherever my client's maintaining, what I'll do is just drop about 500 calories or so. And see how they're responding. So ideally, right, you want to find that bottom end of maintenance and see where your body's kind of maintaining. And from there, drop like 300 to 500 calories. But if we're not sure and your maintenance is kind of even keel, we're not sure what that bottom or top end are, dropping 500 calories from there be a good starting point. And the cool part is like, you can always change things. So if you're ravenous, starving, then you might need to adjust things a little bit. But ideally, you want to set your calories from the bottom end of maintenance. And so usually for females, and this is if you know the bottom end of maintenance, which you should if you're going into a fat loss phase, you want to drop about 300 below. Men can do about 500 below maintenance. And that should lead to about a half a pound to a pound of body fat a week, right? So if you want to really lose those 10 pounds, then yeah, you probably want to be closer to that 500 calorie deficit every day. But I wouldn't slash them aggressively right away. And like, I'm going to give you like an example. So my maintenance range is about 24 to 2600 calories a day. And so I'd probably start my deficit at about 2100 calories and see how my body's responding. And if I'm not super ravenous, if I'm like hungry, but scale trend line is averaging about a pound a week, then I'm probably going to stay there. Because I don't want to suffer. I'm going to suffer, right? It sucks to be in a fat loss phase. You're going to be hungry. It's going to be kind of miserable in some parts, but I want to suffer the least amount possible. So I'd rather not do too extreme of a deficit, but if I have to, I can. And I can always drop lower. But that's why I usually am a little bit more cautious, and I will just drop 300 below maintenance to see how I'm feeling and how my body's responding, so it's less aggressive. Because you want to create enough deficit to lose fat, but still be able to train hard to maintain strength and still have enough energy to have good quality sleep. Next thing I would do, I would track every bite, lick, taste, morsel of food that goes into my mouth. So the more accurate you can be, the better you can be. If you're not tracking every single thing that is going into your mouth, there's a lot of potential errors. I mean, like a handful of nuts can be 100 to 200 calories. And so if you're doing that, not tracking it, big margin of error there. So track everything. You might not be precise, but do the best that you can. Every sauce, every oil, every taste. Not because, again, this is not to be obsessive, but it's to be like, make sure that you're actually in a deficit. Because if you're in the mindset that I'm in a deficit and the scales are moving, but you're not tracking everything, you're not hitting your step count, you're not training intensely enough, it's going to be miserable because you're thinking that you're losing body fat, but you're not actually losing body fat. And then 10 weeks are up and you haven't lost a single pound. And that sucks. Next thing I would do is I would pre-plan everything. I'd plan my meals ahead. I'd have my breakfast set. I'd have my lunches available, dinner plans for the week, because that will help me be consistent. That will help me be consistent, help me consistently hit my targets, and help make sure that, again, I'm actually in a deficit. Because if you're flying, like, just, I forget phrases, y'all. Flying by the seat of your pants. I don't know, whatever that saying is. If you're doing that, then it's going to be way harder to hit your targets and actually make sure that you're in a deficit. You're getting enough protein to maintain muscle. You're getting enough carbs and fiber and to keep you full and push performance. If you're not tracking that and you don't know, or if you're not planning that and you don't know if you're actually going to hit your targets by the end of the day, you probably won't hit your targets most of the time. So plan your meals ahead of time, either by pre-tracking or going to the grocery store. And the other thing that I do, I usually keep my meals pretty simple and repeatable. So that way it's easy to replicate. I don't have to do mental macro math every single day. I already kind of know what I'm having. And it just makes the process like way easier. So I highly, highly recommend that too. Like just having a game plan, having like a couple breakfasts and lunches on repeat, a couple dinners on repeat, and then just recycle them. It's just 10 weeks. It's not the end of the world, right? And especially if you build meals that are really filling, have a lot of fiber, have a lot of protein, that's going to make this process way easier. I'd also, like, this is going to be really important too, and I think protein's been overhyped for a while, and you don't probably need as much as you think. Like, you need about 0.8 grams to 1 gram per pound of body weight to maintain muscle, and you can even be on that 0.7 range, and you'll maintain plenty of muscle tissue. But because it's a fat loss phase and you're going to be hungrier, I tend to err on the higher side of protein for that, unless we have to drop carbs too low, then because carbs are going to help keep that performance high in the gym, keep energy levels high. So I'd rather, if a client's in a fat loss phase, if their calories are a bit lower, if they get to that point, I'm probably going to drop protein a little bit and up carbs just to make sure they still have that energy throughout the day. But you don't need as much as you think to maintain muscle, but you do need protein. You do need it because you need to maintain that muscle that you built, or you're going to be in a worse off spot than you were before. So definitely worth focusing on. But if you've been listening to this podcast for a while or fitness podcast for a while, then you're probably already doing that and you're probably fine. And you might even be able to drop some of your protein intake. So that could be worth experimenting with. But protein's important. It's going to keep you full, help you maintain that muscle mass. So I'd have at least 0.8 grams per pound of body weight daily. And then another thing that I usually do is I swap some of my like denser carbs or denser like fat sources for some like more higher volume foods so I can physically feel full. So what that might look like is swapping like white rice for like potatoes. Potatoes are really filling. If you air fry them, get yourselves a Ninja Crispy. Man, best potatoes I've ever made. Chop them up into cubes, a little bit of avocado oil spray, like little dash, garlic salt, air fry them. They're so good. They're so good. Like, but really high volume food, very low calorie potatoes are for carbs. Like they're great, great fat loss food. So potatoes, awesome. Fruits and vegetables. I'd opt for like higher fiber, lower sugar fruits like berries, like raspberries, strawberries. Watermelon's great too. It doesn't have a lot of fiber, but it's very voluminous, low calorie. You can eat a lot of it. Broccoli, cauliflower, swapping, like, let's say you do rice bowls a lot, swapping some of that rice for cauliflower rice, that helps a little bit because you're still getting rice in there, so it doesn't taste like cauliflower, but it's giving you more volume. I really love popcorn, homemade popcorn. You could do air popped popcorn, pretty low calorie, really high in fiber, very, very filling. Big salads, super great. If you have digestive issues, salads aren't the best, but otherwise, pretty great option there. Soups are really great too, because there's a lot of liquid. It's going to just physically make you full, right? We're talking about like not cream-based soups, but more like broth-based soups. And yeah, just trying to like kind of hijack your fullness signal by eating like bigger volume, lower calorie foods is just going to help the process be a little bit less miserable. And then the other thing that's going to be a non-negotiable if you want to maintain your muscle mass and keep your metabolism healthy and strong, strength train. I would strength train 2 to 4 days a week. Personally, I train 4 days a week, so I would still do that, but I would probably reduce my volume because if you're eating less calories, your body doesn't have as much ability to recover. So you really want to make sure that you're training enough to maintain the muscle tissue, but not training too much to where you break down that muscle tissue and can't rebuild and repair that muscle tissue. I would also adjust my training expectations. So in a fat loss phase, you have less calories, your ability to be strong, you'll probably be less strong. But that's okay because this is not a performance phase. This is a fat loss phase. We're trying to shed some body fat so that we can go back, look leaner, get stronger, build more muscle. It's just 10 weeks. It's okay. But what I would do too is I would time my carbs around my training so that I could still push performance. So ideally, you're maintaining your performance and maybe even implementing that trick. Carb time or eating your carbs around your training can help push performance, but just realistically, you probably won't be as strong. And so that's when I'll probably change rep ranges or some exercises so that mentally it doesn't screw with me as much. I would keep steps extremely consistent. So when you drop calories, keep steps the same. And then as you notice, like scale trend is kind of dropping, then you could jump steps up. But first, just keep steps consistent. Like if you're already averaging 8 to 10,000 steps a day, just keep them there. But if you're like, I'm kind of hitting a fat loss plateau, jump the step count up about 2,000. And you could reduce calories by about 100 and see if that works. I would not start a fat loss phase with cardio, but midway through to get that extra body fat to come off. If step count is already high, I would bump the cardio. So I would add 2 to 4 sessions, 20 to 30 minutes of zone 2 cardio a week, midway through that fat loss phase, just to keep that fat loss consistent. I wouldn't do high intensity cardio. It's going to be really hard for the body to recover from, and that's going to spike your hunger signals, which we don't want because you're already going to be hungry. But doing like low intensity, steady state cardio is going to really help just improve your overall calorie burn for the day. And so again, as I said, I wouldn't start that right away, but I would slowly add that in. And maybe 4 weeks in or 3 weeks in, you add one session, 30 minutes. Then 6 weeks in, you add another, and then 9 weeks in, you add another. And so by the end of the fat loss phase, you're doing like 3 30-minute zone 2 cardio sessions a week on top of the 4 lower intensity training sessions. Like that's probably going to be, assuming the sessions are about 45 minutes to an hour for training, right? Let's say it's on the higher end. It's just going to be 5.5 hours of activity a week, which isn't crazy, about an hour a day during the week, right? Maybe 30 minutes on the weekend. So again, fairly reasonable amount of activity. Don't have to overhaul your life. And I probably wouldn't run. I'd probably do something that's a little bit lower intensity, like maybe swimming, air bike, rower, spin bike, elliptical, something like that. That's easier on the joints. And to monitor the trend lines, you have to weigh yourself consistently. So every single day I'd weigh myself. The scale's going to fluctuate. That doesn't matter. It's the trend. We want to see that trend line going down about ideally close to a pound on average a week, depending on your size. And I guess that's also a caveat. If you're a petite woman, like you're 100 pounds, you're probably not going to lose a pound of body fat a week. Probably closer to about a half pound. If you're like me, 175 pounds, 6 feet tall, it's probably going to be about a pound a week. So that's something to keep in mind too. But it's important to not make adjustments too quickly. We want like 2 weeks of data before making drastic adjustments. Obviously, if we want like really 10 pounds of fat loss in a week, you can structure things to where after week 3, you're adding that cardio session, right? Like I was talking about, maybe after week 4, you add those 2,000 steps, and then week 6, you add another 2,000 or something just to really get you to that point. Low intensity, but just adding that in there to make sure that you're moving in the direction that you want. But monitoring the weight trends is going to be important to do that, to make more educated decisions. And that's what a coach can do for you. I would also keep track of more than just the scale. This is what I do with all my clients, because scale, like I said, it might stay consistent for a little bit. And then I've had fat loss phases where scale doesn't move for almost 2 weeks, and then boom, it dropped. I think it was like 5 pounds last year. And I was like, whoa, that was crazy. And that just happens sometimes. And that's okay. But that's why we're measuring other things. Like, are your clothes fitting better? Like, what are your waist measurements looking like? Are you taking progress photos? Monitoring consistency. Like, are you actually doing the things? And then that leads to the next thing. I would probably eat for 10 weeks. If I really wanted to shed 10 pounds 10 weeks, I would eat all of my meals at home cooked. I would avoid restaurants. If I needed a little bit of a break, I might have a restaurant meal here and there, but I would still probably make more mindful decisions. Like I probably wouldn't get a big pizza or anything. I'd probably get like a steak with like a baked potato or something like that, like Texas Roadhouse sort of meal sort of thing, if I just needed a break and to get out of the norm. But the more you can keep track of what you're actually eating, the better the results will be, because the more precise that they will be. And so that tends to be the problem with a lot of clients, is they want the more fast, efficient results, but they're not willing to sacrifice in the short term, not forever, just for the short term, some of those social things or some of those like fun things. But again, this is temporary to get in and get out of a fat loss phase. And so personally, last year, I lost like 20 pounds of body fat. And I ate all of my meals at home for those like 12 weeks that I was in that fat loss phase. Maybe it might have been 16 weeks, but I ate all of my meals at home. If we had an event, I would still go, but I would eat beforehand. I was also going through a gut protocol, so it was extra important for me to do that. And I was okay sacrificing it. Also, in Utah, people have terrible taste, so me not eating Olive Garden, I'm fine with that. I don't really like casseroles. I like steak and potatoes and home-cooked meal, grilled. Like, I don't need that weird stuff. So it was really easy for me to do that, like mentally, like because I prefer my home-cooked foods, which goes to show you should really try to learn how to cook and cook food that you enjoy that tastes good. Super important. And again, my food probably doesn't taste good to everybody, but it tastes good to me, which is the most important thing. So anyway, point being, The more you can control what you put in your mouth by making it yourself, the better results you're going to get. I would not have a lick of alcohol for those 10 weeks. That's easier said than done for me because alcohol is not really a huge part of my life anymore. I love a beer here and there, but I rarely have one because I feel so poorly. So I will say it's easy for me. But alcohol is really terrible for fat loss, really terrible for sleep. It's just not good for you. Terrible for performance. Usually it lowers inhibitions, which can make it harder to control food choices late in the evenings. So honestly, just not having it's going to make the whole thing a whole lot easier. So just skip it. 10 weeks. It's not the end of the world. I would make sleep my number one priority too. Because if you're not sleeping well, you're not sleeping enough, your body is not going to be able to do what it needs to do to lose that body fat. And when you're not sleeping well, hunger spikes. You're already going to be hungry. You don't want to make it worse. Hunger spikes, energy dips. That's going to decrease your performance, decrease your overall motivation and drive to get your step count in, eat your meals at home, get your training done, right? So we don't want that. We don't want that. So the more you can prioritize sleep and make it top priority and just really dial that in, the better your results are going to be. I would manage my stress like it's my part-time job too. Sleeping is going to be really helpful, but also like doing something every day for yourself that is fun if you can, even if it's like 20 minutes in the morning, reading a book or going on a walk outside or whatever. Like it doesn't have to be a big thing, but try to be a little bit mindful and try to not overwhelm yourself with extra stuff, because stress also decreases ability to sleep well and get quality sleep. It increases cravings. It affects just your mood. And so all of those things, and the reason like managing stress is so important is all of those things can make it harder to do what you have to do to lose the body fat and can affect just your metabolic health during that time. So for these 10 weeks, I would make sure you don't have a lot on your plate. I would make sure that you're not signing up for extra stuff. You're not joining the, what is it? Like PTA? I don't know. Like you're not volunteering for extra stuff. You're just doing what you already have on your plate, not adding anything more to it, trying to reduce things from your plate so you can just really get in and get out of that fat loss phase, make it as seamless as possible. Protect your own mental headspace. And this is kind of something I've been alluding to most of the episode, but don't go off of feeling. Don't make random adjustments. Make educated adjustments. And if you're not sure how to do that, having a coach for 10 weeks to walk you through a successful fat loss phase is going to be a skill that you can use for the rest of your life. So, don't make random adjustments. Make educated adjustments. The scale will fluctuate. That's part of it. It's fine. Don't be reactive. Have a plan, stick to it. And if after 2 weeks trend line isn't trending down, that's when you make adjustments. I kind of alluded to what I would do during a plateau, but essentially, right, drop calories about 100, up steps about 2,000. See how that goes. Adding in a couple zone 2 cardio sessions can help. Making sure that what you're tracking is actually accurate and dialing that in. Adjusting food choices for satiety, right? Like swapping rice for potatoes or cauliflower rice. Swapping maybe your, maybe you have like a fancy coffee that you make every day with like whole milk, maybe having black coffee, making some little swaps like that. And something that I like to use, depending on the client, their compliance and all of that, carb cycling can be very fun to implement Because yeah, there's going to be those low calorie days when you're not moving, but on your training days, you're fueling your performance, and that's going to help the mental load a little bit. It's going to help by having some higher calorie days in the week, and it can be a fun way to help you be more consistent, because you're like, oh, today I only have like 1,700 calories, which kind of sucks, but the next day you have 2,300. So it's like, cool. Well, I can have like 4 big meals tomorrow, and today I only have 3 small meals, but that's okay. I'll make it work. But I wouldn't, and I've kind of alluded to a lot of these things. I would not slash calories aggressively. I would not cut out all carbs. I would not add any high intensity interval training. I would not add more training volume. I would not keep dieting if my body is not responding well. And by not responding well, best things to keep track of are biofeedback. So sleep, stress, energy, hunger, digestion, recovery, and libido. If your sleep all of a sudden is terrible, get out of that fat loss phase immediately. If your libido is 0, you have no desire to do anything. If hair is falling out, this has happened to me. Get out of that fat loss phase. That's not normal. That's not healthy. That's a sign. Don't ignore sleep. Don't not track everything. Don't eat out every other day and wonder why you're not making progress. Don't compare your rate of fat loss to somebody else's. And don't stay in a deficit forever. So, really important part of a fat loss phase is having an exit strategy and an exit plan, which is why you have a start and end date. And then after that end date, you're done. You're getting out of there. And what I would do and what I do with my clients is I do a reverse diet out of it. And so usually that first jump is about 200 calories. And then we stay there for about a week or 2 and see how they're feeling, see where the scale is trending. And then next week we add another 100. And then again, monitor for a week or 2. And then that following week we add another 100. Then we monitor for another week or 2 and slowly get them back to that top end of maintenance so they can maintain those results. And the reason I said the scale is going to have to drop more than about 10 pounds is because some of that initial weight drop is going to be glycogen, water, and so we need to make sure that we did lose about 8 to 10 pounds of body fat. And when you're going back up to that top end of maintenance, you will gain weight. You will gain scale weight. But the cool thing is, at the end of a fat loss phase, you're depleted. You look sad and flabby. When you bump the carbs up, you're going to start to fill out your clothes. You're going to start to be able to see that muscle definition, and you're going to feel way better. Your performance is going to improve. You're probably going to start to build a little bit of muscle. It's the best part. Like, post-fat loss phase is the most fun time because you've been depleted for 10 weeks. You feel low energy, and then boom, you're getting super strong, improving your performance, feeling better, eating more food. It's the light at the end of the tunnel. So that's a really important part of the process too. And again, if any of this stuff is like overwhelming to you or scary, or like, I really want to do this, but I'm not sure if I can on my own, then just shoot me a message. We can set up a time to chat and see if it would be a good fit. But I'd say like having a coach for a fat loss phase and getting out of a fat loss phase, probably the 2 best skills you can learn with a coach besides building muscle. Actually, I'd say building muscle, number 1, but most people do fat loss wrong. So going through a fat loss phase with a coach is going to help you never do it wrong again. So anyway, thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, if you could rate the show, share the show, subscribe to the podcast. It just helps me get this information in front of more people. So thank you. I really appreciate it. And again, if you're like, I think I want to work with you on this, just book a discovery call below or shoot me a message on Instagram and we can chat about it and make sure that good fit and the right approach for you. So anyway, thank you for listening, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.